terrible quality, but my son currently has my phone, so I'm letting him play on it because it's plugged up charging anyways. But I have something I want to talk about, and that is the whole concept of, is love enough? Is love enough? And to a certain extent, people who say no, love is not enough would be correct. Because I think a lot of that comes down to our own basic perception. If you are overclouded with negativity, you are far more likely to perceive positive moments as well as neutral moments and interactions with other people to be negative 50% of the time. And one thing that science also has concluded is that for something to be happy and stable within a relationship, there has to be an 83%, I believe that's what it is from the Gottman Institute, an 83% interaction, positive interaction, more specifically, as opposed to 30% being the minimum. And I think between that 83 and that 30%, that's kind of where we get the disconnect, pretty much. That's that love bombing idea that so many people want to talk about. And that's why we view it as like manipulation and things. Not saying that manipulation is not a prevalent thing in society, because it absolutely is. Simple things that people would consider to be persuasion, that's also manipulation. But that is besides the point. So, a lot of it is based on perception. On the contrary to that, one of the things is it depends on how you define what love is. Are you defining it as a feeling, or are you defining it as an action? If you're defining it as a feeling, then no, that feeling is not going to be enough, because you're going to have that high feeling and it's going to crash eventually. You have like a 2-year span of that lovey feeling, the honeymoon phase that people talk about. That's a 2-year span when everything comes crashing down and things kind of seem to get sort of out of balance, and you're seeing more clearly, and you're starting to recognize big flaws in your partner that you once ignored. But on the contrary to that, if you're defining it as an action, the ability to serve somebody else, I would say that it is enough. But how can we determine if it is enough? One of the biggest things about negotiation and persuading someone into doing something is not about how well it is you speak. It's about how well it is you listen, how well it is you pay attention to who it is you're dealing with in order to speak and act in a way that best resonates with them. So if you are not loving someone in a way that they best receive love, it's not going to resonate with them. That love that you are giving is not going to be enough. But yet this still goes into perception. Because while my husband could do something and I could view that as him just doing the bare minimum, to him that could be him going above and beyond. That is something that tends to be out of his scope of measure, which leads me to the question, where does the bare minimum end and above and beyond begin? Who gets to determine that? And that is a question that I've had for so long, because if my husband is going out of the scope in which he usually operates in, that could technically be considered above and beyond. But if I view it as something that should be done because the bare minimum is what is required of us, then where's the line drawn? Now we know, and we can say based off of, yet again, Dr. John and Julie Gottman's research studies on couples, where they talked about in the book, The 7 Principles of Marriage, one of the things being that impact far outweighs your intentions. You could do something with good, pure intentions, but if the counterpart receiving receives it negatively, then it's going to have a negative impact. And another thing that they also talk about within a lot of their research studies and a number of books that they published on their research findings is that 5-to-1 ratio. You have to have 5 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction, because even 1 negative interaction far outweighs 1 positive interaction. And when you don't make up, I know that's not the right word for this, but when you don't make up after that incident and you're not having these, I can't remember what they call them at the moment, and I don't have a book because my friend actually borrowed it, then that negative interaction can sort of just fester. Based off of Dr. Zeigarnik, I don't know if I'm actually pronouncing that right or not. This is another thing that they talk about in the book, The 7 Principles of Marriage. No. That's actually in What Makes Love Last. Hold on. What Makes Love Last, because I actually have this book. And I know my quality for this video is terrible. I don't even know what the sound is like. I probably should have plugged up my microphone, but I didn't. The Zeigarnik effect, and I know I'm close to it. But essentially what that is a scientist did a study where he or she, I'm not entirely sure if it was a male or a female. I want to say it was a female. But essentially, she recognized that at a restaurant, when someone's order was completed, they were done, they were satisfied with that order, the waiters and waitresses could not remember any of those orders. However, the ones that did in fact have complaints and had issues that did not get resolved, every single waiter and waitress could remember those specific orders to a T. So we're more likely to recall unresolved issues. In addition to that, if we do not have that sort of repair and we end up allowing that negativity to overcloud us, which is going to happen if there isn't some sort of resolution or repair that happens, then that's going to fester. And that's going to cause what Dr. Robert Weiss actually refers to as negative sentiment override. That is where you get to the point of having far more views of negativity in life. The 50% of positive and neutral interactions being perceived as negative, which is another thing that they actually talk about in this book, What Makes Love Last, which this is all about trust and betrayal. I'm going to be honest with you, if you decide to get this book, I will say that there are going to be things in here that they talk about that you're probably not going to like, because one of the things is infidelity and whether it is you can work through it or not. But I just wanted to notate this down in a video specifically, primarily because it's a lot easier than me having to stop in the middle of what it is I'm writing for my entry for today to write this in the book. So I wanted to record it real quick and I guess share it with you guys too. Yet again, I want to apologize for my quality, but I had to get all that out.